out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 219 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as I always am, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States of America, Mr. Gary Action Jackson. And I don't know about you rock fans, but I did catch a little bit of the Grammys and saw more on the socials and the news. And I was just really turned off. Maybe I'm just a get off my lawn old man, but doesn't anyone play instruments anymore? Is it just slutty people in barely any clothing dancing? Does anyone make real music anymore? Well, I'll tell you a band that made it as well as anybody, and that's Led Zeppelin. And last week we did part one of Physical Graffiti because Physical Graffiti, the only double album Led Zeppelin ever made, and one of the best albums in the world, is turning 50. And instead of making just one big 2.5 hour long show, we decided to break it up. Disc or LP 1 was last week. Now this episode is all about Disc or LP number 2. And it's 9 songs versus 6 on the first. And I'll tell you, this is where we get into some deep, deep tracks. Stuff that never would have made it on a single album. But I'm not going to say that they're throwaway tracks. There may be some tracks that I don't love, but some of it is very eclectic. Some of it's kind of fun. And there are epics like In the Light, very long song. There are acoustic stuff like Bron-Yr-Aur. You still got some of those heavy riffs that we love, like on Sick Again. And then you've got some odd, fun little weird jams like Boogie With Stu. I know a lot of people are going to say, that's not Led Zeppelin. It doesn't have big, hard riffs. It's not cool. Yeah, it wouldn't be on a single disc album. It just wouldn't. You got 8 songs. You're always going to find 8 or 9 songs that are better than that. But as far as where it is in the catalog, it's an outlier. It's kind of cool, and it's them having fun. So don't just stick it on Coda or eventually on some box set. They stick it on here, and it kind of makes an ecosystem of the whole record that just shows off everything that Led Zeppelin could do. And I will take this over most any other double album in the history of ever, because the riffs from Jimmy are that good. All the different things that John Paul Jones does, whether it's on the mandolin or the bass or the clavinet or the organ or whatever he might be playing around with, he does it amazingly well. Bonham is in lockstep with Jimmy, powering through this, and Robert Plant is still the rock god he ever was. This is before anybody really started to deteriorate. And while some of these became staples in their live set, some of them were never ever played by them live. Because quite frankly, after 1975, they didn't tour very much. Pretty good tour of the Americas in 77, couple dates in 79, tour of Germany in 80. That's about it after this. So they never really had a chance to do some of these. And we're going to go track by track to tell you what we love, what we don't love, what's interesting, and why it matters here in just a bit. But first, we do have a little business to take care of. As always, we like to mention we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of over 100 shows. You can learn more at pantheonpodcast.com or follow on socials at PantheonPods. And we have to give a shout out to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, guys. They're based in the UK. So they have a ton of Led Zeppelin stuff. They have old school stuff, original print stuff, posters, magazine covers, imports. You could buy a ton of Led Zeppelin stuff, rare stuff in great quality from rarevinyl.com. And the good news is they've given us a code UGLY that you can use at checkout, which will save you 10% off one entire order. Not just one item, but one entire order. So if you want that first pressing of Physical Graffiti where the windows move out and in and you can put in famous figures of the boys in the band, or you want to put the letters in that say Physical Graffiti, you can do that. You want one of many In Through the Outdoor covers, you can pick one of those up. You want one of the rare singles, maybe one from the Netherlands or something like that. You can find those. Maybe you want a classic magazine or poster or tour program. You can find it all. You can buy it all, and then you can save 10% off it all with the code UGLY. So don't just buy one thing, buy everything your heart desires, and save yourself a big fat 10%. Your record collection is going to thank you. Now back to Led Zeppelin. I grew up in the Midwest. Jackson grew up in greater New York City. We don't always agree on everything, but we agree that Led Zeppelin was one of the real bands that truly changed the game. It influenced all the hard rock bands that we were into in the 80s and early 90s, and they left before they got bad. So there's not that whole, oh, well, they really ruined themselves by doing these last 2 albums. No, they were awesome. John Bonham died. They were done. And this album, Physical Graffiti, is them at their apex. This is the high watermark for their creativity, for their power, for their experimentation, for fun. Yes, I like In Through the Outdoor. Not a lot of Led Zeppelin fans do. I don't know if Jimmy likes it all that much. I'm not a huge fan of Presence. There's 3 songs on there that are great. There's 3 or 4 more that I'm like, eh. But this was the last great Led Zeppelin album, and it's a double album. And it's something we should all cherish as it turns 50. So here we go. We're doing part 2 of Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti here on The Wolf. Now, disc 2, side 3, starts off with In the Light, another 74 Headley Grange song where JPJ gets another co-write. And once again, it's a song they never played live. Now, part of that could be didn't tour in 76, where they could have picked some of that up. Didn't tour in 78, where they could have reached in and say, all right, we're going to bring out a couple of these that you haven't heard yet. But this is an amazing song. Maybe not like your typical Led Zeppelin song, because there's a lot going on. There's movements to it, and there's clavinet, and maybe some electric piano. I don't know. But what did you think of In the Light to start off the second LP?
I would have thought that this was older than 74 just because it sounds very psychedelic. Like it sounds like an early, like, late 60s, maybe early 70s deal. I mean, again, this doesn't sound like anything else on the record. You got that like dirge kind of beginning to it, yeah. And then Plant kind of comes in like he's almost like he's chanting, and then it picks up from there. I like it. I think it's good. When the keyboard drops in, it gets a little more upbeat. It definitely picks up. It's funky, it's different, but I still like it.
That's cool. And apparently that noise over JPJ's piano work is Jimmy using an acoustic guitar.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, no, it's a bow. It's a bow.
Oh, okay.
He's dragging the bow.
All right.
Some kind of bow on an acoustic guitar. I like the fact that they let John Paul Jones off the leash on this one. And he's on, at 4:10, there's kind of a change where he's on the clavinet doing his thing before Jimmy does the uplifting.
Yeah.
Some people say that's over the top and it's not as uplifting as it's meant to be. I disagree. I think it's a great piece of guitar over what's going on underneath. And I found a note that Jimmy says it's his personal fave on Physical Graffiti is In the Light.
Interesting. It definitely, I think it picks the whole song up. I think it actually makes the beginning part better because it kind of, it doesn't, it's not kind of that downer the whole way. It picks up and it gives you more of a sense of hope. And that's what they're talking about. Like the whole thing is in the light, like, you know, going toward the light, lifting things up. Now I like that.
And it was called, it was based on an earlier song called In the Morning. That they tried to make work, but there's one called Everybody Makes It Through. That's what was put out on the 2015 remasters as kind of the this is the step before it actually really became In the Light. And, you know, Robert's tracks aren't, 100% what you would hear on the last one. Some of them are just kind of placeholders. I think it's great. And, I've got a buddy, Pat, who's like, he's kind of turned me in some ways to it because he's like, Led Zeppelin is so much better than what gets played on classic rock radio. They only play about 8 songs, right? They play rock and roll. They play Heartbreaker and Livin' Lovin' Made. They play Whole Lotta Love. They play Stairway. They play Kashmir. It's kind of about it. They only have about songs. They kind of ruin Led Zeppelin. Why don't they break out In the Light more? Why don't they break out Down By The Seaside more? They've got a lot of great songs that you never hear because they bring it down. And me, that's my thing. Like, if I have to hear Heartbreaker and Livin' Lovin' Made one more time, I'm going to murder somebody on the radio. But they never play this, right? So, and it just kind of harkens me back to that time I was at the Jimmy John's and that dipshit kid was back there yelling at his coworkers about how Led Zeppelin sucked. I'm like, dude, you're taking out the trash. Like, they don't trust you at the register. They don't trust you to make food. You're a dipshit. But it's not your fault you're a dipshit. It's not people's fault who are young who think Led Zeppelin suck because they've only heard like 3 or 4 songs.
Right.
They hear something like In the Light, you say, wow, they could do a lot more stuff than that. And it is an uplifting thing. It's a little longer, right? And it's kind of moody.
This would have been kind of hard to play live because it's kind of a downer at the beginning, and if you're in the middle of this high octane deal.
Yeah, it's 9 minutes. I don't know. I mean, they could have played it live. They could have. But it's just another one, like there's like this list of great songs just on this album that they've never played live. They could have done a show that like the stuff we've never played live before, and this could have been on it for sure.
Everybody needs a line. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Ooh, baby. Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, they could have played this thing in its entirety. That would have been something to see.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
That would have really been something to see. Now, the next song, Bron-Yr-Aur, it's just a 2-minute acoustic thing. It's basically Jimmy doing his thing. It was from Led Zeppelin III, which makes some sense because it sounds like the acoustic stuff they were doing then.
Yeah.
1970 Island Studios. People would probably remember it best as the traveling music from like going to the airport through like over the bridge into New York City for The Song Remains the Same.
Right. Yeah.
But that wouldn't come out till 76. So that's still like a year and a half or so away. It is a nice little acoustic thing. It could have been on Led Zeppelin III. It's a nice piece of music. It's not per se a song necessarily, but you get Jimmy doing this cool little thing. I always liked it, probably because of its use in the movie.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the Moby Dick also. I always equate that with the movie in the soundtrack. I like this thing. I wonder, like, is he playing two different parts or is he playing everything at the same time? Because I know, like, you can play, if you're really good, and he is, you can play like the high part on the high strings, and then you can also simultaneously be playing the low strings
like the
with
bass
another.
player,
Yeah, it's really cool to see. I know Steve Stevens does that really well, playing two parts at the same time. This is pretty cool, and it just shows you like he can pretty much do anything. You want, slide guitar, boom, you got it. You want heavy riffs, boom. You want something light and acoustic, you got that too.
You got that here too, yeah. So,
yeah.
And I like where it is, because In the Light is a big, epic kind of song.
Yeah.
If you listen to them straight now, which you can do on streaming pretty easily, Kashmir to then In the Light, you need a little break. You need an intermission. You need at least to go to the bathroom, probably. And this is a nice little, like, chill piece of it. Not epic, not huge like the others, but again, I like it, and it kind of fits in with everything they're doing. And the sequencing on this album is actually, I think, pretty amazing.
Yeah, because you're going to go into something that's different also, and this is a nice segue into it.
Into Down by the Seaside, which is a Zeppelin IV outtake from Island Studios in February of 71. Now, this is different. You got to admit that this is different from most of the stuff that they do, right? I mean, it's got a little country in it. It's a little haunting. So you're doing something different, but I like it. It's another one of those, they kind of started acoustic when they did it back in 71, but then Page and Bonham sped it up and slowed it down. Because there's the bit in the middle where he kind of makes a shift.
Yeah. So far away, and they go. Yeah, it picks up. Yeah.
People turn away. People turn away. So far away, so far away.
About 2:10, it kind of makes that shift. It's been speculated that Neil Young was an influence on this. And I will admit, having since kind of become pretty acquainted with Neil Young's better stuff and his live stuff, there is a Neil Young sound on that little part of the track.
This song actually, I remember the first time I ever heard this or one of the first times I was like, what is this? This doesn't sound like anything they've done. This just sounds weird. What is this? It's very trippy, when he goes into that. But when you figure out that, yeah, he was inspired by Down by the River, I guess, they already had Going to California. If you grow up in England and you get to California and you just say, well, hey, wait a minute. This is the greatest place on the face of the earth. He loved Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, Joni Mitchell, the whole Southern California lifestyle, the vibe there. This is a tribute to that. Now this makes way more sense to me.
Yeah, you can hear JPJ on the electric piano here. So he is moving a lot between the bass and his keyboard toys at this point. I also feel like it's a little Stones-like as far as some of the sounds that Page is doing on here. We're not sure if Page is using a tremolo or a Leslie speaker to give it that underwater effect. A Leslie speaker, you can look it up. I'm not going to go into great detail on this. He does use it a little bit. It's something the dude named Leslie created to give this kind of weird sound, but it kind of gives that it sounds like you're underwater a little bit.
Right. I've got a note here. I just said, I wonder if he's playing a Telecaster just because he's got that twangy country sound to it.
Yeah, I couldn't find any notes directly on that. Plant sung it as a duet with Tori Amos for the tribute album Iconium, which I completely ignored because who gives a shit. I'd rather just listen to Led Zeppelin playing Led Zeppelin than other people playing Led Zeppelin. I know that was popular at the time.
And I would say the same thing, but I did enjoy the Stone Temple Pilots.
Dancing Days.
That was pretty good. But yeah, for the most part, I want to hear Led Zeppelin do Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, just let Led Zeppelin do Led Zeppelin. You know, I don't need it. I mean, am I going to buy something like that? You got to be kidding me. I'm not wasting my money on that. You know. Ultimate Classic Rock called it a wistful fantasy awash in trembly guitars and bluesy electric piano breakdowns.
Okay.
No one ranks this as one of their real top ones, but the lyrics, it's like people turned away. People turn. Is it people turned away about people turning away from nature? Because it sounds like to me that they're kind of talking about, down by the seaside, it's like this kind of beautiful thing. And, Plant wasn't a big city guy. I mean, to this day, he still lives out in the countryside, right? So out in the country, hear the people singing about their growing, knowing where they're going. Oh, the people turned away. Is that the city people turning away from the country people? I don't know.
Yeah,
Sing loud for the sunshine, pray hard for the rain, and show your love for Lady Nature, and she will come back again. Yes, she will. Oh, the people turned away. They turned their back on Mother Nature? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Interesting. Like, moving away from like an agricultural society to, the big city industrial.
Or being in touch with the land and what, God gave you in favor of, this other stuff, which is not all that important. And it is yet another really cool song that they never performed live. And I get it. It's different, but still, man, come on. Some of these songs are so good. All right. Now, to wrap up side 3, we've got 10 Years Gone. And this is one where John Paul Jones, another 74 Headley Grange, it's another kind of new one, but JPJ played the triple neck when they played it live. Because
one of the coolest things
I've ever seen in my whole life. He's got the mandolin on top and then a 12 string and then a 6 string. Coolest thing in the whole world. It starts as an acoustic piece and then there's that riff. And in a minute and a half, we get it in earnest. The big fat riff. 10 Years Gone. What do you like about this one?
I like it because you're moving away from like kind of fantasy stuff that they were doing before. This is a real thing. This is a story about him, about Plant and his ex-girlfriend, and about how, you're kind of reminiscing about a love that you've lost. And it kind of goes in and out between being happy and sad, as far as like, why did this end? Why is life moving on? And it's a little more, I think it's a little more introspective than a lot of stuff they've done on this record. And again, it's kind of a transition piece too.
Yeah. And you're right. It's about Robert remembering a girl kind of early in his playing days saying, well, you're going to choose me or choose your fans. He's like, well, I don't even really have that many fans right now.
Yeah. Apparently this person, it's either me or the music. And well, what he was going to choose, but just that longing for this, I don't even know if it's a person anymore, but like that feeling that you had with this, why did it have to end?
Yeah. But then in retrospect, it's also like, well, she's much happier. and so am I, right? She got her man
Right,
in her little
yeah.
house with the kids. That's what she wanted. And I got to go out and see the world and see lots of girls who are a lot more interesting than her. And so it works out for me too. But 322 is like the heavy bit of it that I really love on this song.
Somebody, I really need 'em, babe. Did you ever really want somebody? Best of you ever had. Do you ever remember me, baby? Did it feel so good?
It wanders a little bit, but it's great, you know, and it's a story about a man going from a teenager thinking, you know, God, I don't want to just get a girl and, you know, work at the mill or, you know, and get a little place. You know, I'd like to see if there's something bigger out there for me. So, I mean, that's from being a teenager to being a golden god. That's what those 10 years in between are, you know, and
Yeah. And just, you kind of think to yourself, like you said, you know, you could have done that. You could have taken the easy road and had a normal everyday lifestyle, but you chose not to. But it's still that there's that little bit there that's like, well, I wonder what would have happened had I done that. And you know, you forget about the person themselves. You just have that feeling of being in love at that time in your life. So this is kind of heavy duty, you know, more than just pumping gas and going all night long.
You know, I mean, On the Wings of Maybe, downing birds of prey kind of makes me feel sometimes didn't have to go, but as the eagle leaves the nest, got so far to go. Like, I can't just be stuck here. I gotta go, honey. And sorry, but you know, hope you enjoy your regular, normal, boring ass life while I go become world famous with thousands of women and billions of dollars. But hey, enjoy yourself. But John Paul Jones' Triple Neck is just so cool when they would play it live, and they did play it live, you know, so.
Hi, this is Steve Howe of Yes, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
And now here's the thing. We're 10 songs in on a 15-song album, 3 sides, 3 different LP sides. There's nothing bad yet. There's not a bad track.
I don't think so. No. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of amazing. An hour's worth of music. And nothing's bad. Nothing's like, yeah, I don't want any of that. It's like, no, that's good too. Like, oh yeah, that's really good too. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that way. But that's why this is so epic. This is why this is like the best album that they ever did. And I know some people give it guff because we're going to get into some songs that are not amazing and they didn't play it live, but still just that hour of music makes it their best ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there aren't anything that you were going to skip. Even stuff like Down by the Seaside that is so different. It still works, and it's still something that you'd want to listen to. That was one of my things too. Is why weren't more of these things known? I mean, we could play a couple more of these on the radio and be happy.
I know, I would be very happy, but they always ask me. Okay, so now we get to side 4. 5 songs, the most songs on any of the sides. And it's more retreads than it is new stuff. 2 are from the Zeppelin IV sessions at Headley Grange. 1 is from Stargroves. And then there's 2 from the 74 sessions at Headley Grange. We start off with Night Flight from the Zeppelin IV sessions. Hammond organ for JPJ, Leslie speaker for Jimmy Page. And the lyrical content comes from after hearing about like nuclear testing that Plant saw on the news. He was looking for some peace in the world.
Okay, I saw that, but I've also got another note here that it's maybe about somebody running away from getting drafted into the army for Vietnam.
Okay,
you know, the night flight, we're out of here. Because there's a note here. Somebody pushed a gun into my hand and tell me I'm the type of man to fight the fight I'll require. Like that, like I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. And, you know, some friend of his or something like that. This is, for Zeppelin, this is kind of some heavy lyrical content on, you know, the state of affairs in the world.
Someone pushed a gun into my hand, you know, that's one of the lyrics, you know.
Yeah.
I received a message from my brother across the water. He sat laughing as he wrote the end inside. So I said goodbye to all my friends and packed my hopes inside a matchbox, 'cause I know it's time to fly. Oh, yeah, come on, meet me in the morning. Meet me in
But then some of it, later in the song, it's like, I once saw a picture of a lady with a baby, Southern lady, had a very nice smile. We are in the middle of a change in destination. When the train stops, all together we will smile. I guess that's when we finally live in peace. We will all smile. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's a little less clear to me.
Yeah. I always thought the cool part about this song was the organ. Like it sounds, you'd think, man, should we put an organ into this? I don't know. And then it as it's added in there, it kind of gives it more of like a little bit of a gospel feel.
Yeah.
It's just a different flavor here that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Come on, meet me in the morning. Won't you meet me? Okay. This is the first one I don't love. It's not a bad song. And there are some cool changes in it. But this is not like sides 1 through 3. This is definitely different.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. I think we've done this long enough to realize when you sequence, if you've got stuff that maybe isn't the strongest, you kind of bury it
towards the back,
close to the right. Yeah.
But this kicks off the side 4, and it's got a good rhythm to it. I don't love it. I don't love it.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's not bad.
I think there's been so much cool stuff so far that this is, it's kind of like I mean, yeah, I don't hate it.
Right.
Yeah. But it's just like, okay.
But this to me is skippable after what the last 10 songs brought you. To me, this is skippable.
Yeah, I agree.
But then you get into the Wanton song, which is from 74, Headley Grange. And I like this way better than Night Flight.
I would have thought that maybe this should have been the first song on the fourth side.
Yep.
Because this is just straight ahead. It's compared to everything else that we've seen so far. This is very simple. You got that riff, and Bonham is killing it on the drums, and it's just about sex. That's it.
And Jimmy's riff. I think that Jimmy had the riff, and they kind of built everything around it.
That definitely drives the whole thing, and they put it around. You're right. They put it in around that. It's for Zeppelin. It's relatively simple, but sometimes that's what you need.
And look, Plant is squealing to me a little bit here.
Yeah.
They did play this live in 75, so it wasn't one they completely abandoned. The solo isn't amazing, but the riff comes back just after 3 minutes into the song, and it's killer. It's so good. It's great Led Zeppelin, and that's all you need. And Bonham is right there with him, just clobbering it. There's more clavinet for John Paul Jones. I'm not sure if there's any bass on this or not. I'm not 100% sure. It was more backwards echo and Leslie speaker for Page to make this cool sound.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is kind of what you need too. It's kind of like the acoustic stuff before. It's kind of a palate cleanser here.
Yeah, this is definitely about sex. I mean,
yeah.
You see my trembling hand when we know the time has come. Lose my senses, lose command. Feel your healing rivers run. That's kind of straightforward, to be honest with you. It's not even like a tendre,
Yeah.
My fire needs a brand new flame, and the wheels roll on, rolls on. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I do. I like it. I think it's I think it's a cool song. Should have probably been great riff. Should have been the first song on side 4. But hey, if that's, I probably would have just flipped them. I wouldn't have made a huge change there. I just would have flipped those two, to be honest with you. But the next one is where it gets interesting. And this is derided by Zeppelin fans because it's not really a Zeppelin song.
Okay.
And that's Boogie With Stu.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know the history of this is because they had the Rolling Stones mobile thing at Headley Grange. Ian Stewart comes by to kind of like help them set it up or whatever. And they just start jamming, having a little bit of fun. Basically jamming off Ooh My Head by Ritchie Valens.
Okay. Yes. And I can see why you maybe wouldn't like this. It sounds very out of place on this record. It's more of a 50s 50s rock homage. However, knowing the backstory and hearing Ian Stewart, who is definitely an unsung hero, of the Rolling Stones world. Hearing him just play and just thinking about that, like, he comes in with the mobile studio and like, hey, while you're here, why don't we fool around a little bit? Why
Jam a
don't
little
you
bit,
lay
yeah.
some stuff down? And to me, that's what this is. This is just them fooling around, playing stuff that they love, when they were kids growing up. I love it because of the story and because it's different. And that boogie woogie piano was fantastic.
It's cool. I know.
Yeah. And then you had the whole thing about the writing credits.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that. But I mean, yeah,
Yikes.
so it's the four of them plus Ian Stewart
Uh-huh.
as co-writers. Plus, they give credit to Ritchie Valens, of course, because they're definitely borrowing his lyrics, if not his, his rhythm to it.
Right.
Apparently, he wrote that with Bob Keane. Okay, so while they gave Ritchie credit at 1/6 of the credit for this song on a double album that has 14 other songs on it, yes, they thought it was a good idea to sue to get more credit for it.
Okay, so technically what they did was they gave his mother credit, Ritchie Valens' mother, because if you look at it, it says Mrs. Valens on there, because apparently she didn't get anything from his publishing rights. So they figured, we're going to give her we're going to pay her a little bit, give a thumbs up to everybody. And then, the Ritchie Valens people, who obviously Ritchie was dead for quite some time after this, then they turned around and sued them. And Page was like, we tried to do the right thing. We ended up getting kicked right in the face.
Half went to Bob and half went to Ritchie's mom. And it's like, okay, but this isn't a single. No one plays it on the radio. It is 1/15 at most of this album, But yeah, Jimmy's playing a lot of acoustic on here.
If you told me you had the piano deal and the acoustic, and you said, you know what we need on this? What's that? A mandolin. No, you're not going to put it totally works. It sounds weird on paper, but it totally works in this song.
It is, and there's a little laughing.
Yeah.
And like, no, leave it at the end.
Yeah, yes.
They leave that on there.
It's just them fooling around.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And look, after over an hour of brand new music, most of which is unbelievably good, this is almost comic relief. It's kind of a breath. And it's kind of funky. Like you could strut around to this while you're listening to it. It's fun.
Yeah, and you could just see them, in the middle of this whole recording thing. And I mean, let's face it, it's not all business. Like, you're gonna fool around, whatever. You got to take a break. That's what this was. This was a break. Hey, no, come on, Ian, come on, play something. And then, him starting and then them just filling in around him. Yeah, no, I like this because it's a look behind the curtain too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, they needed some filler. It's not quite 4 minutes long. They need to stick, just a little bit more in here. The whole album is 83 minutes. So that's not quite 21 minutes per side. And the big ones fit together on the first two sides. They just kind of made that work. On the third side, they kind of took a long one, a short one, stuck them together, and then a couple of mid ones and put them together because they're the best. And then this one is kind of like what's left over. This stuff would have ended up on Coda if it hadn't been
correct
on side 4 here. I understand people are like, that's not what I'm looking for. No big riffs, no killer lyrics. And the 50s were trite by this time in the 70s, even though they're having a little bit of a resurgence. But by the 80s, when we got to this, the 50s was old man shit.
Yeah.
And I understand why people our generation's like, that sucks. Like Stu Allen, who's that big kind of psychedelic guitar player out in San Francisco, played a lot with Phil Lesh and Mars Hotel and stuff like that. In high school, I remember him saying, yeah, but not all of them are great, like Boogie With Stu. I'm like, but you're Stu. He's like, yeah, but that song sucks. I'm like, well, I don't think it sucks, but it is not what we're looking for as teenagers going through the Zeppelin catalog. I get it. Some references back to some of my high school buddies on this show. I'm sure they're all listening raptly. Okay, so then next, Black Country Woman, Houses of the Holy outtake from Stargroves in 72.
Okay, now let me ask you, did they have the beginning part of this on your CD?
No.
Okay, so they didn't have the, should we roll it, Jimmy?
They do have it on the remaster, but
Okay.
I think they took the stuff off of that.
Yeah, see, that's too bad too, because you hear that and then you hear the airplane. We got to get that airplane off, and then they go into the song.
Yeah, no, you can hear Jimmy saying, "No, I'm about to take off," kind of referring to
Yeah.
to the airplane, joking about it. It's acoustic from Jimmy, but then it's the stomp from Bonham that comes in at 132. I think they should have started that stomp maybe a little earlier, because the stomp to me is what makes the song the song.
Yeah, and that and the mandolin is kind of cool too. Again, it fits a little better in here. Yeah, the stomp is what gives it the kind of the trademark, and it definitely picks. Yeah, I have a note here. It picks up when the proper drums come in.
Oh, baby, why you treating me mean? You didn't have to crucify me like you did. You didn't have to tell me I was just your kid. Hey, mama, why you treating me mean? You didn't have to say you'd always be by my side.
Yeah, it's a little almost off kilter a little bit. I don't know. It's it's like staccato guitar playing. It's not really strong. It's bang 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 bang, and hey mama, and then but the don't
That's what makes it. Yeah,
is really kind of makes it. Again, this is different than but they did a lot of acoustic stuff.
right.
From over the years. The thing is, there's a good bit of harmonica from Plant kind of near the end, but then he sings over most of it. So you couldn't really recreate it live exactly if the harmonica's going and Plant singing. But it's kind of a blues folk throwback here. And I don't know if they borrowed any of this, but it seems like it's a definite throwback to the old blues guys,
Yeah, kind of more of a little simpler of a track.
Yeah, you didn't have to crucify me like you did. You didn't have to tell me that I was your kid. Hey, mama, what's wrong with you? That's all right. I know your sister, too.
Of course you do.
So, it's like, fine. You're not working out? That's okay. I got one that looks just like you who does. So, you're a pain in the ass, but that's something the old bluesmen would have done back in the day for sure. Like, yeah, it's okay if you don't want it. I know someone who does, someone too.
Just move on down the line.
So I like that one. And then there's Sick Again.
Yeah.
The last song on the album, and it was 74 Headley Grange. And I got to tell you that for the most part, I didn't listen to this much, because if you listen to all of the second disc for us, and then maybe I sat through Night Flight, maybe I didn't. Boogie With Stu is different and probably not what I was looking for when I was listening to Led Zeppelin. And then I sat through Black Country Woman. I might have ditched Sick Again just because, all right, look, I've been doing this for a while.
You're just tired.
If I listen to the whole second thing, I can almost guarantee you I already listened to the whole first disc, right? So I'm almost an hour and a half in here, and I think I just probably ignored that. But you know what? I kind of forgot about the first bit of the song. But I do love the Jimmy parts in this.
So you got to think, okay, so we're at the very end of a 4-album or 2-album 4-side deal. I mean, what do you really got left in the tank? I think this is a great ending song. It's upbeat, it's straight ahead. It's it's about the
Chicks.
it's about the groupies. So for a last song on a double album, I think it's pretty good.
From the window of your ready little scene, look your pretty blue eyes. One day soon you're gonna reach 16. Ain't it light in the city of light? Oh, do ya know my name? Do I look the same?
They've got some good messages in here. Like one day soon you'll reach 16. Oh my God.
Back to Lori Maddox.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, these girls were teenagers, and that's like to hear like people say, "Are you groupies?" No, groupies are like teenagers. We're like friends of the band. That's what like the 21-year-old girls would say. But yeah, I mean, it lasted for more than 2 years, their relationship, ending in 75 when Maddox was 16. Like, she's
geez.
aged out at this point.
Oh,
And Maddox claimed she ended the relationship after finding Page in bed with BB Buell.
well, that
Another girl who'd been around.
I believe 100%.
But like she'd give it, even Buell kind of like railed on her, like she'd given herself exclusively to Jimmy Page from 14 to 16.
Jeez.
And then she was barred from seeing him, once he started dating BB. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of groupies.
Yeah.
There's a lot,
Just a never ending stream. And that's kind of the sad part too of, if you think like, oh, I'm the one that's going to get him to commit and be, no, you're just there's just a line. And, like you said, once I get done once you age out, then, we'll get somebody new. Or once you get boring or I just don't care anymore.
Or you said something
dumb. Or,
like, you know what?
or you get to.
Oh, you are 16, aren't you? Okay,
or
next.
you feel like you're too entitled and no, we're done.
But I mean, she lists Jeff Beck, Ronnie Wood, Carl Palmer, guest of our show on episode number 90, Jimmy Bain, Keith Emerson, Angela Bowie among her conquests, including David Bowie. So, I mean, I don't know. It was a different time.
There you go.
It was a different time. Yeah. And I don't really hold anything against the men or the women who did this, but it was one that they actually liked. I mean, I don't think the solo was that special, but the riff with the slide and the chorus riff is slidey too.
Yeah, and it's heavy for the end of this thing. I mean, that riff is really cool with the slide kind of at the end. It's awesome.
They played on 75, 77, and 79, and at Nebworth, Jimmy's got a smoke in his mouth while he's playing the Les Paul, and JPJ's on the bass.
Let's just stop here for a minute. Kids out there, don't smoke. It's horrible. It's a bad habit, not good for you at all. But to see him with that cigarette in his mouth, that's pretty cool. Damn it. Damn it. Just looks so cool with that Marlboro just hanging out of your mouth there.
Yeah, except that he was sweating profusely.
Well, I'm not saying
was
that,
all hunched
I'm
over.
Not saying at least the great decisions.
The heroin, was the bad part. If he's only smoking cigarettes, I guess it's a good thing. My note is it goes over well live. Like it's not like dragging or anything. It goes over pretty well live.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is moving well, but he has started to sweat pretty profusely through his blue shirt at this point, and you can really see it there. And there's more of it that's not on that DVD, but I had to check it out. The difference between 75 and 79 for Jimmy is enormous. Between being a healthy badass, can do all this amazing stuff with the slide and his guitar and the double neck and all that, and then now, he's struggling physically a little bit. You can tell at 79.
Is that where they bring the chair out for him?
Yeah, but not quite. So I mean, but it's like even playing singing like, "Do you know my name?" Like, do you even know who I am? You're like this kid who saw me in a magazine, ran away from home, and now you want to have sex with me. Clutching pages from your teenage dream in the lobby of Hotel Paradise, which may have been the Riot House, through the circus of the LA Queens, which was a bunch of groupies, how fast you learned the downhill slide, which is, like we're going to trade you for a case of beer or whatever, they do. Since you said you dug me since you were 13, then you giggle as you heave and sigh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
Hours and hours and the moments in between. I couldn't count the times. The fun of coming. Oh, the pain in leaving. Baby, drive those silver eyes. Yeah, she's a kid in love with a god. And you're just like, next town, next girl. Whatever.
And like you said, it was a different time back then.
But again, so that's good. And that's 74. So what's the 74 stuff that they did? What if they'd only put together a 74 album and somehow they stretched out the audio quality, made it work? Well, you got Custard Pie, In My Time of Dying, Trampled Underfoot, Cashmere, In the Light, 10 Years Gone, Wanton Song, Sick Again. Those 74 Headley Grange sessions were special.
Yeah.
They did killer work on that. And the stuff that's a little different or breaks in the action, that all came from somewhere else. If you just done the 74 stuff and then maybe given them a little more time. Okay, we need a double album. We need to come up with 4 or 5 more songs. or maybe 3 if we make some more epic ones. Who knows? Maybe they would have just kind of kept going and it all would have been just one killer riff-driven fiesta. But as it is, I still love it. I love it for what it is.
Yeah, I do too. And I like the fact that they did bring in some of the old stuff to kind of give you, it gives it more of a flavor than all just being one idea, not one idea, but like one direction they're going in.
Because they had different engineers and Page's stuff sounds a little bit different. I mean, Andy Johns was at the 70 and 71, both the Island and the Headley Grange sessions. Eddie Kramer was the engineer at Stargroves, Keith Harwood and Ron Nevison did the engineering at Headley Grange 74. I'm sorry, Keith Harwood was Olympic 74. But anyway, that's when they're like doing the mixing and the mastering and stuff. But yeah, I mean, they're working with some different people. And of course, the album cover is epic. I mean, right? It was at 96 and 98.
96 and 98, St. Mark's Place in New York City.
In New York City, yeah. And it was, they had to squish out one of the stories of the building to make it kind of all look right because it's 5, not 4, I guess. But yeah, and then of course, Waiting on a Friend video by the Stones was taped right out there. But there was like a cafe, like it was I don't know if it was a Physical Graffiti cafe or if it was a Night Flight Cafe, I think might have been the name of it or something like that, that was there for a long time, like in homage to this is where that was done kind of a thing.
It is cool to see it in real life. You're just walking down the street and obviously somebody pointed it out to me, but you look at it and you think, oh yeah, there it really is in real life.
That is it for sure. With the garbage cans outside. And I bet they don't have the metal tin garbage cans out there anymore. I bet those are long gone. But I mean, just everything from the packaging of it to the brilliance of all the guitar stuff, to the brilliance of all the drumming by Bonham, to all the different toys that JPJ plays throughout it. It really is a masterpiece, I think, from top to bottom. Even though not all of it came from it, I know some of those you wouldn't have put on a single album. But it's not a single album, it's a double, and you get time to explore and go into some different stuff on a double album. Not everything's a #1 hit on a double album. And this, I would put it above Exile on Main Street as my favorite and best double album ever. And I can't imagine what else you would put up with it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to Exile on Main Street, and as much as I love that record, a lot of it is kind of the same. It's that bluesy rock stuff where they do have different genres they're pulling from, different feelings. So yeah, I mean, I think as an overall experience, this is pretty special. And it really is meant to listen to start to finish and experience the whole thing. And it really is too bad that more of these tracks aren't picked up, because if you get in on the radio, because if you get into this, you think, they're amazing. Why don't I hear these all the time?
And if they had continued into the 80s, right? They did the small European tour in 1980 around In Through the Outdoor. They were going to probably do an epic American tour again. And then Jimmy was adamant about, we got it because I was out of it and there was so much keyboard and stuff on it. We're going to make another guitar-driven album. Would they have eventually broken out more of these over time if they had kept going? Would they have at some point said, we're going to do one of those tours where we play all of it? That would have been amazing, but it just never happened. And they didn't really tour much after the 75 tour. They didn't tour much at all. So there wasn't much of a chance to see a lot of these. And then, when they did tour, Jimmy was in rough shape or Bonham was in rough shape.
Yeah, exactly.
And they kind of had to stick to, okay, well, what's our set list going to be? Okay, well, it has to have this and this and this. And, now we've got a new album out, so we have to include some of that stuff in there. Yeah, they did a month tour of Germany in 1980, and that's it.
Oh, jeez.
And that's it. Because later that year, Bonham died, and then that was it.
Yeah.
They made so much money. They made so much money off of the records. I mean, they made a ton of money from Atlantic, from the records themselves. They didn't have to pay for production. They didn't have to pay for printing. Also, Peter Grant had engineered that they got, whereas like back in the 70s, you kind of were lucky if you got 50, like the promoter got 50% and you got 50%. You were lucky if you got that cut. It was 90-10 in favor of Led Zeppelin, just because they know you're going to sell your arena or your football stadium out, and 10% of that is still killer.
Yeah.
And so they were not forced to over tour, and they didn't the last half of the 70s. They just didn't. But as far as masterpieces go, this is it. I would say over Led Zeppelin IV. This is the best Led Zeppelin ever were.
And still after we're coming up on we're doing this as the 50th anniversary. It still kicks ass today. It's not like, well, yeah, when it came out, it was okay. But now, the people have outdone this, not even a little bit.
No, it's still amazing to this day. And I'm just glad that we got to go ahead and do it, because, it's tough to do a double album. Not everybody cares, 30 years afterwards or whatever. But this is amazing. This really is. I mean, it's why I love Led Zeppelin.
Right.
It really, truly is.
It does not disappoint at all.
That's our wrap up of the most epic Led Zeppelin album of all time, Physical Graffiti. It pains me that rock radio has kind of ruined Led Zeppelin for a couple of generations of people. There are so many songs on this album that never get played, that show not only the strength of riff from Jimmy Page, but also the breadth of everything they could do from all the amazing talent they had in that band. But no, they'll play Livin', Lovin', Made 1,000 times a day. They'll just play Black Dog or Rock and Roll 1,000 times a day. Yeah, they'll play Kashmir, but they'll never play In the Light. They'll never play Down by the Seaside. They don't play Wanton Song. They never play Sick Again. And so you have to go and find the album and listen to it all the way through. And especially now that only 3 companies own every single radio station there is, and it's all pre-programmed, DJs have no say over what they play anymore. How are people ever going to discover how amazing Led Zeppelin will always be, if they hear the same 6 songs all the time, and most of those are kind of or just overplayed at the very least? I was so psyched when I saw that this was coming up on its 50th. Jackson and I were both like, yes, we're obviously going to do Physical Graffiti. And they give us both a chance to really go back and listen to all these songs in depth again. I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun. I know we've kind of done a few Zeppelin and Jimmy Page related things here. We did The Firm turning 40. We've got a double episode on this, and there's some fun stuff coming up. There is a Led Zeppelin movie, Becoming Led Zeppelin, coming out. We may just have to check that out. Robert Plant's got an album coming up on 40 this year, and you never know what we might go see live. But this album was special. I'm glad we got to do it. I'm glad to have the time to be able to go through and tell the stories and just relive Zeppelin at their greatest and be able to see them live and some of that Earl's Court stuff that's available. It just shows you they really were the best. A lot of that's hyperbole. A lot of that, the bands come and go. But these guys really were the real deal. They could really write songs. They could really play. Each individual was fantastic at what they did. And when you got them together, I don't know that there was ever anybody better. I really don't. But that's our opinion. And we know a lot of people out there know a lot of things about Led Zeppelin, so we want to know, do we get something right? Do we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You got to email us and let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You let us know the bands, the albums, the concerts, the books, the DVDs, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. And we need you to download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Those downloads are the lifeblood of growing our show. And if you really want to help us out, hey, go leave us a 5-star review. Really anywhere. Spotify and Apple are the big ones. But anywhere you get your podcast, please go give us a positive review. It means the world to us. It helps us find more rockers like you. And if you send it our way, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, where if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% off one entire order. And trust me, gang, they have a ton of Led Zeppelin stuff in their catalog. That's it for this week. More classic records with big anniversaries coming up here very soon that we can't wait to talk to you about. So stay tuned. And to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.